Welcome, everyone, to today's Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The date is December 7th, 2023, and I should say it's the 82nd anniversary of the Day of Infamy, and may we never be that unprepared again, which is certainly happening in the world. Okay. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023, signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham ZBA is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410. Then you punch in the conference ID number, which is 560-282-72, and then hit the pound. Or you can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. To authorize this hybrid form of meeting, I will have a roll call of all the board members. Please state your name and whether you approve or not.
Virginia Fenwick, I approve.
Paul C. Semple, I approve.
David S. Nixon, I approve.
Randy Potash, I approve.
David H. Veach, I approve.
I would ask that any citizens or non-board members participating in the call via the phone, please give us your name and the last four digits of your phone number just for ID purposes. The way we conduct the meeting is to begin with, the hearing notice is read. It's read by the lady to my right. This is Sarah B. Clark. She's the PPO for the town of Chatham. That's the principal permitting officer. We will then have a presentation either by the applicant or their representative. When that is done, I would ask for anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor to do so. They may join the conversation. We would then have all correspondence that we'd received read. Following that, I would ask for anybody either here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to either speak against or has a specific question to join the meeting. Again, notify us, raise your hand, or go on Microsoft Teams so you can join the meeting. When that's all done, we would have possibly some rebuttal depending on what was entered and offered. We would then have questions from the board members. When that's done, we would close the hearing and go into deliberation. Deliberation is just for the board members. If you raise your hand, you're not going to be recognized. However, if a board member wishes to, for some reason, to interject you into the conversation, they can do that. When we're all done with that, we would have a vote. In the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, on any zoning board, no matter what town or city you're in, it has to be a super majority. In our case, there are 5 votes, so therefore you have to get 4 votes in a favor to be successful. 3 won't do it. Are there any questions? Okay, Paul, I'll bet we've got some minutes.
We have some minutes for the meeting of November 2nd, 2023. I'll move to approve them as published.
Dave Veach seconds.
We need a vote on that, Jenny?
Ginny says yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Yes.
Andy?
Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes. That's a unanimous vote. Okay, so, Sarah, 23-094, please.
Application number 23-094, the KC 2014 funding in care of Michael D. Ford Esquire, P.O. Box 485, West Harwich, Mass. 02671. Owner of property located at 444 Cockle Cove Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 5B, Block 12, Lot 20. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling. The existing dwelling is non-conforming, and it is located 5.9 feet from the northeasterly abutter, 11.4 feet from the easterly abutter, and within the Coastal Conservancy District. The proposed dwelling will be non-conforming, and that it will be located 6 feet from the northeasterly abutter, 6.5 feet from the easterly abutter, and within the Coastal Conservancy District where a 50-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 1,155 square feet, 39.6%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,170 square feet, 40%, where 15%, but not more than 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 2,920 square feet of buildable upland and contains 7,340 square feet of land area, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw. This was continued from November 2nd, 2023.
Mr. Ford?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mike Ford, representing the Caseys. You may recall when we were here last, it was the board's considered opinion that we should go to conservation before this hearing got opened. And so the good news is, I want to report that we were at conservation yesterday. We think the project is well received, and we will be getting a memo in time for your December 14th meeting. What the board did, they graciously kind of set us up so that this was the impetus for the December 14th meeting, this particular continuance. And since you didn't have the room, you continued it to this meeting to make sure you had the room. And now you can formally continue it to the 14th, which is next week, and we'll be ready to go. I've been assured by Conservation you will have a memo from them at that meeting as well. So I rise to request the continuance to the 14th, where we're first on the agenda next week.
Any questions from any members of the board?
I'll move to grant the requested relief to continue to December 14th of this year.
Dave Veach seconds.
All right, we need a vote. Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
All votes yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes. That's a unanimous decision. Thank you, Mr. Ford. We'll see
Thank you,
next
Mr.
week
Chairman.
on that. Okay. 23-085, please, Sarah.
Application number 23-085, 486 Shore Road LLC, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 486 Shore Road, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16F, Block 15, Lot A7. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and swimming pool, and the removal of an exterior mechanical system appliance, pool equipment, and the reconstruction of a new dwelling and the installation of an exterior mechanical system appliance, AC condensers, and generator. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located 30.6 feet from the road, 20.7 feet from the northerly abutter, and 19.7 feet from the southerly abutter. The existing mechanical unit is nonconforming in that it is located 16.9 feet from the northerly abutter. The proposed dwelling will be nonconforming in that it will be located 26.8 feet from the road where a 40-foot setback is required, 20.1 feet from the northerly abutter, and 20.1 feet from the southerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The proposed exterior mechanical system appliances will be nonconforming in that they will be located 16 feet from the northerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. Also proposes the installation of a conforming swimming pool. The existing building coverage is 2,918 square feet, 15.9%, and the proposed building coverage is 3,155 square feet, 17.2%, or 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 18,321 square feet of buildable upland, where 20,000 square feet is required, and contains 31,950 square feet of land area, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw. This was continued from October 12th, 2023.
Mr. Riley?
Mr. Nixon, so Bill Riley on behalf of William Lynn and Mary Murphy, the owners of the property at 486 Shore Road. We were last before you sometime in October. It was one of those days that I like to forget. In any event, so we took the comments of the board to heart, and we've made modifications to the design, which I think reflect the concerns addressed by the board at that time. And I've passed out a sheet that shows you the existing setbacks, the previously proposed setbacks, and the new proposal, which shows what we think is a significant reduction in the size of the building. We also have the gross floor area at the bottom of the sheet that shows you we previously proposed a gross floor area of 8,120 square feet, and we're now proposing a gross floor area of 7,132 square feet. I think a very significant reduction. And so what I'd like to do is ask Karen Kempton, our architect, to explain how she made the changes and the discussion she had with Bill Lynn and Mary Murphy, who's here today. We also have Teresa Sprague here to discuss our planting plans. There was quite a bit of interest in the conservation issues, and we've been back to the Conservation Commission for approval of this plan. And Dave Clark is here, our engineer, if anybody has any questions about the engineering on the plan. So, Karen.
Good afternoon, I'm Karen Kempton, architect for Bill Lynn and Mary Murphy. So in our previous meeting of October 12th, there were issues with the design that increased the nonconformities of the existing house. And after rewatching the meeting, there were four main issues that were troubling to the board. Number one was the proximity to the NDZ, and also that was noted by the Conservation Commission. Number two was an increase in the nonconformities of the sideline setbacks. Number three was an increase in the nonconforming building coverage. And number four was finally an increase in the nonconforming street setback with the garage projection. So to solve a number of these issues, we have reduced the depth of the house front to back by 12.5 feet. This alleviated the concerns of the location of the house and pool that was so close to the NDZ. The house and pool have now moved back 4 feet from the top of bank, from the 0 to 50. So we have also gone from our initial proposed pool and house setback of 50 feet from the top of bank to 54 feet, where the existing is 51 feet from the top of bank. Additionally, we have reduced the amount of proposed hardscape in the NDZ from 610 square feet to 128 square feet, where 317 square feet existed. So a reduction of the nonconformity. We have not reduced the amount of the originally proposed mitigation. The Conservation Commission was quite pleased with this change and said, quote, "It was an elegant solution that and complimented both David and Teresa." The second concern was the increase of the nonconformities into the sideline setbacks. So we have reduced the width of the house so that we are now no longer increasing the nonconformity on the north side. It will remain at 20.7 feet from the property line, where we had originally proposed 20.1 feet. The south side has gone from the previously proposed 20.1 feet to 20.6 to the property line, where 19.7 is the existing setback in this location. Concern number three was the increase in the nonconforming building coverage. So the existing coverage is 2,918 square feet, or 15.9%. In our previous proposal, we increased that coverage to 3,155 square feet, or 17.2%. The current proposal before you is 2,836 square feet, or 15.5%. So 319 square feet less than previously proposed, but more importantly, 82 square feet less than the existing. So this is a reduction in the nonconformity. There is also a reduction of living space by 323 square feet between the first and second floors, and 274 square feet of finished basement space. As Bill said, the total gross floor area has been reduced by almost 1,000 square feet at 988 square feet. And finally, number four was the increase in the nonconforming street setback with the garage projection. Sarah, if you can play the model.
I will in just a moment. I have to restart my computer because Adobe's not opening. So it'll just be a brief moment.
I'll keep going then. So previously, we had proposed 28.1 feet to the corner, from the corner of the garage to the street, increasing nonconformity from the existing 30.6. So by eliminating the one-car garage It's still providing bike and trash can storage in the house. The house is now 36.1 feet from the street setback. So a decrease in the existing nonconformity of 30.6 by 5.5 feet. So the model will illustrate, once it's up, the reduction in this wing on the northwest side. Originally, it was extended from the front of the house 33 feet, and now it is extended from the front of the house a more compact 21 feet. And this is a 12-foot reduction in the length of this wing. So I hope once you see the model, you see that we've taken into account your comments and have reduced the size of the house and decreased the existing nonconformities while still giving the Murphy-Lynn family an attractive house along this beautiful stretch of Shore Road.
Thank you, Karen. Teresa Sprague is here, and we'd like to have her do a brief presentation.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. I'm just going to quickly address the outcomes, the goals and outcomes of the project from an environmental standpoint, and what our goals are to improve the protection of the resource area, mainly the coastal bank. We believe that the project overall will result in an improvement to the ecological function of the resource area and buffer zones. We're proposing to remove 7,014 square feet of invasive vegetation, as well as 2,095 square feet of existing lawn at the top of the coastal bank, which will be converted to native plantings. Our goal in this is to create multiple vegetation layers, which when restored will help intercept stormwater, reducing velocity, protecting soils from erosion, and supporting swift absorption and filtration by deeper, more complex network of root systems. While the invasive vegetation that's currently located on the site does provide some of those functions, it doesn't provide it nearly as well as a native plant matrix plant community, which creates a much more deeper, complex network of root systems which help protect the soil and stabilize the coastal bank. In addition to the stormwater filtration, infiltration, and filtration function, wildlife habitat will be significantly improved with the restoration of native species that provide various vegetative structure, including fruits, flowers, and providing high-quality forage cover and breeding habitat. So we believe that the overall project will be a large improvement to the site's current conditions. It will not destroy, permanently alter, or have any adverse effect on any portion of the resource area or the buffer zone, and will indeed actually enhance the protection of those resource areas and buffer zones. So I'm happy to answer any questions about what the vegetation, restoration, and removal of lawn and replanting of native vegetation will provide in regards to support for the buffer zone. But I just want to reassure the board that there's no negative impacts or adverse impacts to the coastal bank, and that the proposed management plan will actually increase the stability of the bank once it's completed.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks.
That would be our presentation. Dave Clark's here, and he'll be happy to come up and talk to you for a while if you want.
Well, maybe there'll be a question for Mr. Clark. Let's see what happens. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Riley had asked me beforehand if he should go through the criteria again. I said, no, we once was enough. We just wanted to hear about the changes. So that's why we are passing on that. So I would ask if there's anybody here today or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application. Please indicate you would like to join the meeting.
I see no one that wishes to speak in favor.
Okay, then I'll read the correspondence. This is from Judith Giorgio, our health agent here in the town of Chatham. She writes on 12/5, I have reviewed the demolish and rebuild of the existing 6-bedroom dwelling. The property was approved for 7 bedrooms when the Title V septic system was installed in 1986. The septic system must be relocated to accommodate the renovations and proposed pool. A septic plan and application must be submitted prior to approval for the building permit. And that's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this or has a specific question? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the meeting.
I see no one that wishes to speak in opposition or has a question.
Okay, we'll have questions from the board. Dave?
I have no questions, Dave.
Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what is the gross floor area of the existing house, if you would?
I had that in my previous
Yeah,
presentation.
just leave it to me to ask you something like.
67, 66.
So you're going to go from 67, 66 to 7132, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and I see a cupola on your picture here. Is that lit, going to be lit, or,
There's no cupola.
no? What?
It's a chimney in the middle.
Oh, it looks like one, though, it has windows.
Are you looking at the 11.7?
Oh, you took it off? I'm looking at one that came up, that, yeah, it's definitely not just a chimney. Maybe you took it off, perhaps, on the new plan.
Probably.
I believe so.
It was
Okay.
on the last plan, it's not on this plan.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Until we got rid of the garage.
And just for the record, I like cupolas, so.
Paul? And don't talk about cupolas.
I have no questions.
Lee?
I have no questions.
Ginny?
No questions.
And I have none.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
And Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we need a vote. Lee, you were voting on this because you voted on it before. So, we're taking the vote to go into deliberations.
Yes, I vote yes.
Paul votes yes.
Randy votes yes.
Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes, too. Deliberations, Randy?
I think it meets all the criteria at this point, and I don't think it's substantially detrimental to the neighborhood.
Paul?
I was not present at the initial hearing, but I did review it on the demand archives, and you've responded to all of the questions that were raised by the board, it seems to me. Certainly, the elimination of the garage dramatically changes the front of the house, increases the setback from the road. I think now it certainly satisfies all the criteria.
Lee?
I would agree. I appreciate the adjustments and the changes that were made, and I think it's going to be a great project.
Ginny?
I agree with my colleagues. Karen, I think you nailed it with your opening, with the 4 things we heard the board say, and you went through all of them. Your summary matched my summary, Mr. Riley, so very good job. And you noted the pullback on the coastal bank. I talked a lot about the coastal bank last time, so I just want to make a comment about that. 4 feet, and then also I noticed on Mr. Clark's plan that the NDZ was actually a reduction in the decrease of 189 square feet in that area. So that was important to our conservation board, so that's why it was what I thought was important to bring up last time. So I agree with all my colleagues. I think it meets all of our criteria.
Right.
Dave Veach?
Yes, I think they did a good job of addressing the concerns that were expressed by the board. I just thinking back to former member Peter Acton, I'm not sure he would have agreed with the elimination of a garage, but,
He would have hated it.
but, you know,
He's not here today.
you know, he is not in today, so, at least not that we know of. So, but I think that they've done a good job of responding to concerns that were expressed, and I will be voting in favor, absolutely, yeah.
Yes, I'm very pleased. Thank you both, and your clients. I think you made an initial plan that just didn't work for certain ways for us, and this certainly does. So thank you very much. Okay.
I will move to approve the application as submitted, and I guess the question is conditions. It seems as if with this location, we probably should use our standard conditions.
Well, we prefer not to have any limitations. You know, I mean, it's not a particularly tight neighborhood. We have plenty of room on the property for our work vehicles. I mean, I'm happy to have a restriction, so there's no work before 8 a.m. in the morning and no work after 5 and no work on weekends. But we'd really like to be able to begin working and, you know, get the house built. You know, I think what we believe is that the bulk of the heavy work will be done before we get to July 1st. Foundation will be in, the building be framed, most likely the building be very close to tight to the weather. So it's not like we're gonna have big machines running down there. That would be disturbing to the neighborhood. So we'd like to have that consideration.
And you anticipate that you'll be able to keep all construction vehicles and so forth off of Shore Road?
Yes, I believe we would be able to do that.
Well, I guess the question is, in general, how does the rest of the board feel about that?
I would want to make sure that the condition about vehicles was in there. Because we can't have them parking on Shore.
And we agree with that 100%. And, you know, if need be, you know, we can use shuttle vehicles to get workers back and forth. Because clearly, Shore Road, considering all the parking that goes on for the fish pier just down the hill, we know it's a problem, and we're dedicated to not creating or adding to that problem.
All right, then why don't we, I'll propose that we limit our condition to all construction activity and vehicles will be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner, that no work shall be permitted on weekends, and construction activity between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only during the period June 30th to Labor Day.
Right, thank you very much.
So I'll move it on that basis.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we need a vote? Lee?
I vote yes.
All votes yes.
Randy votes yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes, that's a unanimous decision. Thank you both very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Let's see, Sarah, next would be 23-103, please.
Application number 23-103, Joseph and Maria Nicholson, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owners of property located at 46 Homestead Lane, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16D, Block 5, Lot 2. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the partial demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located 2.2 feet from the northeasterly abutter and 5 feet from the northwesterly abutter. The proposed addition will be nonconforming in that it will be located 2.2 feet from the northeasterly abutter and 6.7 feet from the northwesterly abutter, where a 15-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 2,716 square feet, 17.1%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,789 square feet, 17.5%, where 15% but not more than 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 15,902 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Mr. Litchfield.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of the applicants, Joe and Maria Nicholson, who regrettably could not be here this afternoon, in regard to a property that they've owned for 21 or 22 years down on the corner of Homestead Lane, where Homestead Lane turns. I know that you're all familiar with that property, actually, or the neighborhood, from a couple of hearings that you've had in recent weeks or recent months. The Nicholsons have a very small proposal for the rear of their property as shown there. They had originally wanted to expand the house a little bit more than as shown and as is proposed, but zoning rules didn't allow that, so they reduced it further. But before they came to the board, before they made an application, their builder went out and looked at the back rear corner of the house. And I suspect many of you went around the corner to see what was going on. The house leans, not a lot, but sufficiently that the builder indicated it was time to replace that section of the house. So we're talking about a net increase of only 73 square feet, a very small area to the right side of that representation there. And we're rebuilding an existing section at the extreme north corner of the property. It is obviously very close to the lot line, but it is obviously, as you know from having been out there, invisible. It is behind a very, very substantial hedge, which has been there for a very long time and is going to continue on. So we have a fairly small project, and you have a very lengthy agenda, so with that I will go into the criteria as to adequacy of site, including building coverage and setbacks. It's an older neighborhood, obviously, with smaller lots, all of which are non-conforming, but our lot is, by Homestead Mill Pond Road standards, enormous. It's half again larger than most. It's 2 or 3, 4 times the size of some. It's certainly adequate for the current residential use. And I think you can approve the special permit based on the finding, excuse me, that with the modest expansion and the reconstruction at the rear, and in an innocuous location, that the site is adequate for the proposal. As to compatibility of size, on the third page of the handout, you'll note that we have a large lot with a compatible house, 17.1% coverage in a neighborhood ranging up to 32%. Our coverage increases by 73 square feet up to 17.5%, but that is a complying limitation under the sliding scale that we have. So we're not in excess of allowed coverage. Nonetheless, we're larger. But the house will still be compatible. It's less smaller than several of the neighborhood, and it's set back far from the road. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, we are nonconforming as to lot size, as to coverage, and as to sideline setbacks, not as to coverage, but sideline setbacks. There's a slight improvement in the rear sideline setback and a slight increase in coverage, but again, coverage still complies. As to suitability of the site, the chair will later read a comment from the Historical Commission. We were found to have an historic home. It's in an older residential neighborhood and in a site long suited for residential use. The Historical Commission imposed no demolition delay, had no concerns about the project, nor are there any environmental issues, and the site is obviously suitable for continued residential use. Pardon me. As to scale, sighting, mass views, and vistas, we have at present an attractive expanded cape with multiple additions over the years. The scale is comparable to those in the neighborhood, but unlike many, we're set far back from the road, and there's no impact on views and vistas. If you approve the special permit, while it will be modestly larger, the scale remains appropriate with details to match the existing structure, and the bulk of the reconstruction is completely hidden by the hedges. No change in use, it will remain residential. Adequacy of water and sewer, we are on municipal sewer and town water. The chair will read a comment from the Board of Health suggesting that the room in question is a bedroom. The Nicholsons are relocating bedrooms within the house. They are taking an old half bath and a laundry and proposing, doesn't require your view, but the chair's comment there, they're proposing to turn that small area into a home office for Joe. He likes his family, but he has enough grandchildren and insufficient noise, insufficient quiet, so he'd like a little corner for himself. We will address Judy Giorgio's and the Board of Health's comments by either a casement or a covenant or an application to the Water and Sewer Commission for another bedroom. We don't want another bedroom, but we have several options to do that. And if the board approves a special permit, simply want to state for the record that that floor plan may be reconfigured by a casement door or otherwise, because we don't know yet what the solution will be. As to traffic flow and safety, noise and litter, or adequacy of utilities, there are no issues. All utilities are presently there. The question, of course, is whether this proposed addition, coupled with the necessary rebuilding of a small portion of the rear section of the house, is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing house in a non-conforming lot, a lot nonetheless which is half again larger than most in the neighborhood and significantly larger than many. Coverage increases marginally, which I think is offset by a marginal improvement in the rear setback, and again, coverage complies. The proposed addition, like the existing house and the reconstructed section, is within the lot line setback, but that's in a neighborhood where virtually everyone has lot line setback issues and nonconformities. What is proposed is designed to be harmonious with both the existing house and neighboring properties. The proposed addition is 57 feet back from Homestead Lane, and again, in an area which is completely private. So in light of the criteria and the plans, particularly in this location, I think you can find that the proposed addition is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate now you'd like to join the conversation.
I see no one to speak in favor.
I'll read the correspondence. This is from Christina Bassett. She writes for the Historical Commission. On November 21st, 2023, the CHC found the home at 46 Homestead Lane to be historically significant, but did not impose any demolition delay. Then we have a memo from Judith Georgia, our health agent. She writes on 12/5, I have reviewed the plan to renovate. The existing dwelling has 4 bedrooms. The proposal relocates 1 bedroom from the second floor to the first floor addition. However, the new quote-unquote office meets the definition of a bedroom and must be revised to include a 6-foot cased opening. The property is on the municipal sewer and is approved for 4 bedrooms. That is the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to either speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, now is the time to ask to join the meeting.
There is no one in opposition or with a question.
Okay, we'll have questions from the board. Paul, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Lee?
No questions.
Ginny?
No questions.
Dave?
No questions.
Randy?
No questions.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote on that? Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. Okay, deliberations. Lee?
Well, I think this is a very modest, application ask. I think it's clearly a historic home, kind of reconfiguring. So I don't have any issues with this at all. I don't think it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And if I were voting, I would vote in favor.
Ginny?
Agree with Lee. Modest, thoughtful addition. I love a rambling cape. I think you can't see it, it's really in the back. 1932 home, historic approved it. I think they said the back part wasn't actually historic, right?
That is correct, it is not.
And that you can't see it. Agreed. A great project, not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and I would support it.
Dave?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. It's no one's even to notice after, when it's finished. So it certainly is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Randy?
And I agree with everybody else.
Okay. Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I think the only condition we might need is the construction activity and vehicles would be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner.
Agreed. Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we need a vote. Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul votes yes.
Randy votes yes.
Veach votes
I
yes.
vote yes, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you, Mr. Litchfield.
Thank you very much.
All right, Sarah, on to 23-106, please.
Application number 23-106, Twin Buoys LLC, care of Jason Caristi, 4 Windmill Bog Way, East Sandwich, Mass. 02637. Owner of property located at 24 Youngs Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 9D, Block 31A, Lot X1. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of a deck. The existing dwelling is non-conforming in that it was located 11.7 feet from the easterly abutter. The proposed deck will be non-conforming in that it will be located 6.2 feet from the easterly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 9 dwellings on a single parcel. The lot contains 2.21 acres in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Chatham Protected Bylaw.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Jason Christie, 24 Youngs Road. Here, obviously, after the fact, a few of you have been out, and this is something, we made a mistake in thinking that we didn't need a permit. So we would have been here a long time ago to go through this before we built this deck off the side. But we, I guess, explained it, our bad, as a patio. And this is a retirement property for us down the road. We live in East Sandwich and did the same there. It's historic there. The rules were different. We did the same thing, didn't need it. So we assumed, shouldn't have assumed that we didn't need it. But in any event, so we were going through this process, and here we are. So the existing deck right now is just sitting on pressure treated, and it's not attached to anything. It's basically floating, but it's there for safety and entrance to the house. So when we purchased the properties, you can see from the photos that we had sent out, the driveway was basically mud, and then the walkway to the house was bluestone shaling and flaking, uneven. So our insurance company came out and would not underwrite the insurance unless we upgraded the safety and entrance to the property. So we removed, as you can see, the fieldstone, flagstone, Connecticut stone, whatever you call it. It was falling apart, and just made a safe entrance to get in and out of the stairway and the bulkhead. There's a lot of water issues here that the previous owner did make a good attempt to mitigate. Obviously, it's at the bottom of Barn Hill, so all the water comes down the back. Those pilings were put in by the previous owner to help slow it down, but the backyard, as you can see there, it's on a dry day, it's dust, and other than that, it's mud. So we just put down the pressure treated and the decking on that. But it's pretty simple area, keeps it clean, and it's safe to get in, so we're able to get our insurance and use that space. It's beside our house. Doesn't really, it's not in anyone's view or backyard. But obviously, it's in with the setback, so that's why we're here requesting this special permit, because even the existing part that we added on to, that whole set of stairs there, was built for safety for the previous owner, Mrs. Lank, was in the setback as well. So we just kind of extended that on, again, not knowing that we needed to go through this point. So that's why we're here now requesting this special permit. So we did have the engineering, O'Reilly, come out. We had everything measured, engineered by them, so we could see exactly where the previous existing setbacks were, the distances, and what we have now. So obviously, we're requesting that, we'd be able to keep this structure as is. And I can say, the neighbors are all, this is an association with 9 cottages. The association was for it. The ones that had basically, because we don't own the property, we own it as a whole, had to come and request the permit. But all the neighbors, the abutting neighbors, really liked the project and the upgrades and the things that we did to improve the property to the next level after the previous owner. So I don't know if there's any other questions I have to.
Well, ordinarily, we'd ask you to go through the criteria. Did you prepare that? Apparently not.
Yeah. So, number 1, the adequacy and size of the project. So I don't know, I believe that it's adequate for the neighborhood. Other people have the similar size patios, decks, et cetera. Number two, compatibility. Again, there's people with raised decks in the neighborhood, with, same ground structure level decks and patios in the area. Suitability, or impact on the neighboring properties, or the natural environment, including slopes, vegetation, et cetera. So we did install crushed stone around the edge. You can see in the pictures there. So it directs the water down that way and off the site. So we've since planted some more indigenous grasses up behind that structure there to slow the water down. And so it just has a natural path to go out and not just sit and puddle in that area. Compatibility with the proposed use with neighboring uses. Again, similar uses throughout the neighborhood. We have a septic system which is in the front of the house, so there's nothing that's on or impedes the septic or the whole field or the tanks or anything like that itself. So that had nothing to do with with our septic system. As far as traffic flow, it's obviously in the back side of the house. And safety-wise, it was a definite improvement on the safety. Obviously, without that, we wouldn't even have been insured to install this. And then noise, obviously litter, that really didn't come into play. It's a project that we did on our own.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine, thank you. That's good. Anything else? Okay.
No, unless there's any other questions.
All right. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams who would like to speak in favor of this application?
I see no one to speak in favor.
I'll read the correspondence. The first is from Judith Giorgio, our health agent. She writes on December 5th, she said, I have not concerns. She has no concerns about this project. And then we have a note from Patrick O'Brien. He lists his address in Chestnut Hill, but I suspect he is probably, don't know what his address is. Okay, well, anyway, must be local, right?
He's the immediate abutter
Okay,
on that side of the property.
all right. Then he writes on November 21st, I have seen the renovated deck/walkway at 24 and wish to express my support. The renovations are consistent in size and scale with similar properties in the neighborhood. It would also allow them reasonable use of the property for their family. I am the easterly abutter to 24. It is my property that is closest to and most directly affected, if at all, by the setback encroachment. I feel there is no negative impact to my property, and the renovations conform to the characteristics of the neighborhood as a whole. In closing, I consider it to be an enhancement to the neighborhood that we have called home for the past 2 decades. That's the end of the correspondence. Is there anyone here today on Microsoft Teams who wishes to speak against or has a specific question? Please indicate now you'd like to join the conversation.
There's no one with a question or an opposition.
Okay, questions from the board? Ginny?
So what was the gentleman's last name, Mr. Chairman, that wrote the correspondence?
That is Mr. O'Brien, Patrick O'Brien.
He's at number 4
Number
Youngs
4.
Road.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that was, because that was really my one question, was what did your neighbor that you were most impacting have to say? So he answered that. Thank you.
Dave?
I have no questions, Dave.
Randy? Paul?
No questions.
Lee?
No questions.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote on that, Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul?
Vote yes.
Randy votes yes.
Each votes
I
yes.
vote yes, okay. Deliberations, Dave?
Well, this is, it's interesting when you get into a basically at-grade deck, and the difference between that and a patio is primarily a matter of materials in many ways, and I certainly understand the need for what was done, and I can understand that there was a misunderstanding about what was required with respect to permission from the town. And not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood at all. It's an improvement for the situation, for the cottage. They've done a nice job, nice work on it all, and I will support it.
Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the way I look at these, asking for permission, forgiveness instead of permission, is I just put myself in the shoes of what I have approved it in the first place. And yes,
Paul?
Yeah, I think if anything, the underwriters helped you getting something going and solving the problem, and makes it, the whole thing ends up looking much better. So I think it certainly is not substantially more detrimental.
Lee?
I agree with all the other comments. I think you guys did a great job.
Jenny?
I agree with my colleagues, and I really appreciate the photos. I think this was really helpful to see what was there before. So it's better, it's safer, and I would support it.
Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
And Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote? Jenny?
Janie votes yes.
All votes yes.
Randy votes yes.
Veach votes
And
yes.
I vote yes, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
And again, as Jenny said, these pictures are great because we saw what it was before. And thank you very much.
Big difference, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Sarah, we're on to 23-108.
Application number 23-108, Beachy Days LLC, care of Michael D. Ford Esquire, P.O. Box 485, West Harwich, Mass. 02671. Owner of property located at 229 Main Street, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16C, Block 74, Lot 58. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the partial demolition of the existing dwelling and the installation of a new foundation and the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling is nonconforming and that it is located 13.7 feet from the road, 4.8 feet from the northerly abutter, and 31.3 feet tall. The proposed altered dwelling will be nonconforming in that it will be located 13 feet from the road where a 25-foot setback is required, 4 feet from the northerly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required, and the building height will remain at 31.3 feet where 30 feet is the maximum allowed. The existing building coverage is 2,059 square feet, 23.3%, and the proposed building coverage is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 8,843 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Mr. Ford?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Ford representing the applicant, which is an LLC, but it is the McKenties. They own this. They own also property on 47 Hallway Street, which was also in the Old Village. Being in the Old Village, obviously, the historical issues were paramount in terms of trying to plan an upgrade of this particular site. And like many buildings in the historic district, it has a rich history from the standpoint of not only its construction, but its use. And in going through the historic process, which resulted in an approval of what's before you, we learned that it was built sometime around 1887, at least the front portion was built about 1887. It became known as the Hattie Gill Wixon House. Originally Hattie Gill, she married a fellow by the name of Wixon, so it became the Hattie Gill Wixon House. And Hattie ran a business on the first floor. She was a cobbler, sold shoes. I guess Mr. Wixon helped her, and other fine goods, and lived upstairs. And then as the business expanded, she expanded the house, and that's when it started to push out to the rear. Subsequently, around 1920, came into the hands of new owners after Hattie and Mr. Wixon passed away, and a woman by the name of Haven out of Brockton. And she ran the Hollyhock Tea Room, which was a small restaurant, and with her two sons from Brockton who came with her. And she ran that for about, seems like less than 10 years, and then she moved the restaurant somewhere down on Main Street, and the property was then used for a variety of things. renting of rooms. They rented rooms to, it says in the Form B, the Mass Historical Records, traveling salesman, and also to the help at Acme Laundry. So workforce housing was in there. And the back building, the barn, was built sometime around that time, and that became known as the loft. And that was a regular spot where the help from Acme Laundry lived. So then we get to the 1960s. There's a lot of things in these Mass Historical Records. And a retired colonel by the name of Richardson buys the property with his wife. And the Mass Historical Form says that she threw pots and he was a cobbler. I think the throwing pots means she was a potter and did pottery at the site. And they also rented out rooms. And so fast forward to today, the McKentys own it and are looking to renovate it. It needs a lot of work. If you've seen it, the back portion of the house bears little resemblance to, the colonial portion of the front. And so the goal, after speaking with the historic folks, including the architectural planner from the Cape Cod Commission, since this is in the old village, was to demolish the rear, which really wasn't compatible with the original historic house, and replace it, which is proposed, with something that's more compatible to the front portion, with fenestration, siding, chimney, windows, and roof line. And so we worked hard with the Historic Commission, took a couple of go-arounds and, as I say, some input from the Cape Cod Commission, and settled on the plan that's before you. And that plan calls for the front portion to be raised up with a new foundation under it, and then new windows and siding. Most of the building is aluminum siding currently that covers some of the old, we think, either clapboard or shingles underneath. And the back portion of the main house, excuse me, would be demolished and reconstructed per the plans that we have submitted. So with me is John Barker from PSD. PSD is the architects on this particular project. And also, I think online, Mr. Chairman, is Brad Malo from Coastal Engineering, who was the site engineer. If there's questions for Brad, he's on the Zoom as well, I believe. So with that, maybe I could just turn it over to John to have him walk you through the proposal from an architectural standpoint, and then come back to me and I'll walk through the criteria.
Excellent.
John?
Absolutely. For the record, John Barker, Paulina Avery de Silva. So our plan, as Mike laid out, is to lift the front portion of the house, provide a new foundation, new first floor framing, shore up a less than adequate foundation and structural structure, set the house back down in its current location, and provide a new addition to the rear of the house, which maintains the existing footprint of the current structure. So Sarah, if you can flip through the pages, we have some photographs of the existing house, working our way around the perimeter. You can see in the top photo, the right-hand side is the historic structure with the shingled addition towards the rear of the property. On the back side of the addition, there are a series of porches and decks hidden from the streetscape, which we are proposing a slight reconfiguration. This is the north side of the property, which is within the setback. It's a pre-existing nonconformity, but we are maintaining the existing location of the structure and rebuilding the rear addition to kind of clean up some of the funky roof lines, have it more in character, but not compete with the historic character of the main portion of the house, more of a complement. So we have our proposed lower level. Right now it's just a dirt floor with a series of brick and CMU block walls that have evolved over the years as this structure has grown and developed with multiple owners and multiple additions. A portion of the lower level is going to be finished to provide access. The parking is in the rear of the structure, and the site does slope down from the streetscape. So there is access through the lower level to come into the new home, easier for groceries, et cetera. As we move up to the main floor, we're maintaining the existing entry on the street side, front left side of the house, the main gable end that faces the street. We do have photos in the Form B of the original house where they had a more traditional double hung window configuration, which at some point during the house's history was converted to storefront windows. So that was part of the historic revitalization to bring it back to what it originally was. So there are some modifications. The first floor is primarily the sleeping spaces. It's going to be a upside down house with the bedrooms and bathrooms on the main floor, kitchen, living, dining in the primary suite up on the second floor. So again, the second floor has maintained the existing footprint of the structure. The decks and balconies have been consolidated. There were a series of decks and balconies scattered across the back elevation. We've brought those all into the northwest corner. This is the existing and proposed elevations.
The blue there is what's being eliminated, just so the historic asked for that now, so they can see exactly what's being taken off and what's.
Thank you, Mike. This is as we wrap around the driveway side, the rear elevation with the consolidated decks, as I mentioned. And then this is the north elevation. Great. Pardon?
All set?
All set.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So with that, let me get to the list of nonconformities here. This is an R20 zoning district, and so we're nonconforming as to lot area, frontage, building coverage, setbacks, and building height. This is a 2.5-story building that's 31 feet to the ridge on the historic front section. And our ridge on the addition will be a little bit below that. The historic folks like that so that the original historic structure is kind of set off, and that's the reason that the addition is a little bit lower in that regard. The proposed renovations and additions will result in no increase in building coverage, so we're staying right there at the same percentage, which is 2,059, and what's allowed here is 15% or 2,800, so obviously the percentage here is over that at 23.3%, but again, is not being increased. I don't think we listed the GFA number, and I saw Randy asking that on the last one. The GFA on the front structure is 4,201 existing and 4,690 proposed, and all of that additional room is in that basement area that was storage down below, but those are the numbers with respect to gross floor area. The existing dwelling will remain non-conforming as to front yard setback. It's currently 13.7 off the street, and we're proposing 13, and you might scratch your head, as I did when I first saw that in the plans, and said, well, if it's staying exactly the same, we're putting it on the same foundation, why are we going from 13.7 to 13 in terms of the front yard setback, in other words, getting a little closer? The foundation's going to be in exactly the same spot. We're looking for that 0.7 because the measurements, as we know with the building commissioner now, are to the corner boards all the way out, and we're just trying to have a little leeway as we take off the aluminum siding and the older siding and put new siding back on and whatever we need underneath. We're just looking for a little space there, and so that's the explanation for that, just so you know. It's not a foundation that's going any closer to the street. The existing dwelling will remain non-conforming as to the abutter setback to the south at 13.7, where a minimum of 15 is required. The abutter setback on the north side, which is currently 4.4, will end up being, we say 4. We're coming down again on the same spot, but again, we're concerned, we're not sure what we're going to find when we take off that stovepipe and the aluminum siding on that side and put the new boards on, the new siding. So that was, again, to just give us a little cushion there, but the foundation's in exactly the same spot. The existing deck is non-conforming as to the abutter setback to the south, and at 15 feet, that will be brought into conformity, the new deck. So we get rid of that non-conformity in the back. So, and again, the lot obviously doesn't change. It remains non-conforming as to area and frontage. So the second criteria is compatibility of the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. This is a 2.5-story structure, and it will continue to be a 2.5-story structure and continue to take its spot within the old village, front and center on the west side of Main Street. And I think the Historic Commission was pleased with the final proposal, as you can see it there, bringing that forward as an historic home. So where it's not increasing in terms of coverage, and the only GFA increase is not really amassing in the building, it's some additional space in the basement, we think that is compatible in terms of its size as it sits in the Old Village Historic District. Extended proposed increase in nonconforming nature of the structure or use. The front yard setback, we're asking for a little bit more there. We may end up exactly the same as 13.7, but we're asking for 13 to have some space there in terms of the final measurement. Same thing on that north side, where we're going from 4 to 4 for the same reason. The abutter setback to the south stays the same. We fixed the abutter setback to the decks, and the lot coverage does not change. It's exactly the same as what's out there now. And no other nonconformities will be created, and so we'd respectfully suggest that the extent of those changes will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Suitability of site, including but not limited to impact on neighboring properties. We don't think it will have a negative impact on neighboring properties. All of these properties in the Old Village, it carries with them a responsibility, as they are on the National Register, to maintain their setting and to maintain their continued ability to be listed on the National Register. And with the historic approvals, this house will continue to enjoy that. Impact of scale, siting, and mass on the neighborhood and visual character, including views, vistas, streetscapes. There really isn't any change to that from what exists. Compatibility of proposed use with neighboring uses. It's residential and will stay being used for residential purposes. As far as I know, the McKenties don't intend to go, no one's going to be throwing pots or running restaurants, and we're going to stay on the residential side of the R20 district there. The adequacy of method of sewage, disposal, water, drainage. We're utilizing the existing septic system. The chair will read a comment from Judith Giorgio of the Board of Health in which she says she doesn't have a problem, provided that the foundations don't change in a way that changes a variance granted by the Board of Health for the existing septic system. And we had a back and forth with her. I have an email trail on it as to the things that we are doing in back in terms of the addition, keeping the foundation where it is, and putting the decks and the frost wall under the decks. And she said she didn't see a problem with any of that. So I think we're fine, and we are in keeping with her comment. Impact traffic flow and safety. If you were starting fresh on this lot, you'd probably try and figure out a different way to manage it, but all of those onto Main Street, but I don't think this will have any change on that. Noise and litter, we don't believe is an issue. The formula business doesn't have application here, and we're not in the floodplain, so we don't have to address you on lateral expansion issues. So we'd suggest respectfully, on balance, that you could find that this is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and grant the special permit that's requested. But we're happy to take questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here today on Microsoft Teams who would like to speak in favor of this? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the conversation.
I see no one to speak in favor.
I'll read the correspondence. First, we have a note. This is from Christina Bassett. She's writing for the Historical Commission. On October 17th, 2023, the CHC reaffirmed that 229 Main was a contributing structure in the National Register District and did not refer it to the Cape Cod Commission. They also found the home to be historically significant, but did not impose a demolition delay. Then we have a memo. This is from Judith Georgia. She writes on 12/5. I've reviewed the demolish and rebuild of this 5-bedroom dwelling. The property was approved for 7 bedrooms, 5 in the main, 2 in the guest house, when the Title V septic system was installed in 2017 and is deed restricted. The approval was with setback variances to the dwelling foundations, and these setbacks must remain for the new dwelling. That's the extent. No, we're not. 3 Main Street. They write on November 17th. We are writing this letter in support. They have informed us they're going to do a major renovation. We are writing to you in support of this renovation. They have shared all of their plans with us concerning what is going to be done. We are totally in agreement. We did express our concerns about how close the property line is to our house and feel they will address all these concerns with their builders. These concerns include the tree that's located in the backyard and also the existing shed, both of which are located on the property line. Our family property is very old and has been in the family since the late 1970s. It has been the dream of our parents to care and maintain it properly, and we're glad that our neighbors are wanting to do the same. That is the Gray family, and specifically Martha Crawford of Yarmouth, Maine. And I think that is it. Yes, it is. So, questions from the board? Randy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I found that letter a little confusing in terms of, you know what I mean already?
Yeah, so I think you found it confusing in that they start off that they've seen the plans and they're supportive, and then they mention their concerns about how close the property line is to the house and their concerns about a tree and a shed in the backyard. So my understanding is that the owners of the property, the clients, have had discussions with the Grays. And the thought going forward is not to remove the tree, but to have kind of a joint maintenance as to how there are branches that go over on either side, so you own your airspace, as I'm sure you're aware, in Massachusetts anyway. And so it really requires a joint maintenance on both families, and I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
We don't have any intention of taking the tree out. With respect to the shed, because the shed is so close to the lot line, it's my understanding that PSD, when they construct the addition and put a new foundation under the new house, they're going to shore up the property line there so that, and give support, put whatever fill is necessary. They're going to keep an eye on that shed and make sure that there isn't anything that happens there that will prejudice the structural integrity of the shed. So I think PSD's on top of both of those, or at least they're on top of one, and the clients are on top of the other, the tree.
Yeah. That sounds like what they were looking for.
Yes, I think it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks.
Paul?
I have no other questions.
Lee?
I have no questions.
Jenny?
One question about the height. I
Yes.
thought you said the original structure, or it says here, is going to stay, 31.3.
Right.
And then you said the back portion will be subordinate to the, won't it be a lower height?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I missed that. What is that?
John?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Sarah, that may be on the
Is it on the drawings?
I just wanted to make sure it was not going to be over 30.
Can you tell?
Yeah. So, we'll need to get you an answer to that. So, I know it's lower than the 31, whether it meets the 30, I believe it does, but,
Okay,
you know, I don't want to make that representation without checking it.
okay. I thought I missed it. I just wanted to double check that.
Jay, do you have any info on that?
I'm looking right now, but I don't see any heights called out.
Okay, all right.
Is there a scale on that?
Well, I'm wondering, could it be, if you wanted it to be 31 still?
Well, it could be, it would be an expansion of a non-conforming dimensional requirement 31. It would
Right.
not be a new.
Right, that's what I meant.
Right.
So,
Because the
yeah.
existing addition is at the same height. It's
Right.
at 31. And
Okay.
we've been asked to lower the ridge line a little bit to set off the historic structure. So it's lower.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The
Thanks.
building height will be dictated on the front section of the structure.
Anything else, Jenny?
No more, no more.
Okay, Dave?
No, actually, I was just looking at the drawing that we have here, and I know it's been shrunk, so it's not quarter-inch scale anymore. It's probably down to like an 1/8-inch scale, and it looks like it's about a foot below, roughly, below the existing ridge.
I think that's what we were asked to do by historic, is a
Which would
foot.
be a foot.
Which jives with what they've been saying, yeah, okay.
So, no, I have no other questions, Dave. Thanks.
Okay,
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
need a vote, Jenny?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Randy?
Randy votes yes?
Veach votes yes.
Okay. All right, Paul, deliberations.
You know, no formula in business, but on the other hand, we've got cobblers left and right. Start with the cobblers, then no cobblers, and then cobblers back again.
Then the cobbler's back again.
And they want to preserve that option. But, no, this is clearly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Looks like a good project.
Lee?
I would agree with Paul. I think it looks like a very good project, a big project. And if I were voting, I would be voting in favor.
Jenny?
I agree with Paul and Lee. I very much appreciate the owners investing in and improving an historic home in the 1880s era on Main Street. So that is not an inexpensive proposition today to do it that way. I did hear the historic tape where, you know, they're asking you to find, you know, as they should, you know, the same, you know, eave arches and, you know, things like that. It's not an
Trying
insignificant.
to replace the trim in kind, yes.
Right. So I think it's a wonderful project, and I would support it.
Dave?
Yes, I agree with previous. This is in my neighborhood, more or less. I've walked past this house a lot, and I'm really happy to see the improvements that they're proposing. It's surprising, you know, how much as it exists now, between the addition and the house in the front, the three more or less picture windows that present towards the street now, how much they've obscured kind of the balance and the, you know, of the existing structure. And that's all gonna be restored in a way that's gonna look vastly better than it does now. So I absolutely support it, and I think it'd be a great improvement. Thanks.
I agree with everybody else, and it really upholds the purpose and intent of the bylaw in a nice fashion.
Yeah, I think it's a great project, I really do. And I'm amazed at the number of homes along that stretch that have either recently had foundations put under them, or it's going on now. That foundation under the Calico Cat
Exactly.
is huge.
Right.
I mean, when you think about the depth of it and what they had to do to it, I shudder to think what something like that, just doing that costs, so.
But you know, you put those foundations under, Mr. Chairman, and they're good for another 100 years.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope. And then they'll want to do something maybe on the top, but we'll see about that. Okay, that's another subject. Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted it seems as if we may need our standard conditions here, given the
We
location.
would, we recognize that. We're in the old village. We're in a busy area. We'd suggest that, July 1st to Labor Day, your no exterior construction rule would be appropriate. We understand that.
Well, I'll move to approve the application with the conditions that all construction activity and vehicles shall be contained on-site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work shall be permitted on the weekends, and the construction activity would be between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote on that, Jenny?
Ginny votes yes.
All votes yes?
Randy votes yes?
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes, that's a unanimous decision.
Thank you very
gentlemen,
much.
very
Thank
much. Okay, 23-110, please, Sarah.
Application number 23-110, Anthony and Nancy Guarino, care of Larry Brody, P.O. Box 92, Harwichport, Mass. 02646. Owners of property located at 155 Pleasant Street, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 2B, Block 59, Lot 6. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing garage and the construction of a new garage with habitable space. The existing garage is nonconforming and that is located 8.8 feet from the southerly abutter. The proposed garage with habitable space will be nonconforming and it'll be located 8.8 feet from the southerly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 2,527 square feet, 14.1%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,644 square feet, 14.7%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 95.52 feet of frontage where 100 feet is required, and contains 17,975 square feet where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Brody, representing Tony and Nancy Guarino, owners of 155 Pleasant Street. I was here earlier in October for the same project. Back again with the feedback from the abutters and from the board. None of the criteria has really changed. I'm happy to run through it all if you would like, or we could jump to.
I think you should start by telling us the changes that you have made since October, and then we can go on the criteria.
Sure. Will you go to the third page, please? Yep, right there. So we were here, and it's a detached one-car garage with about 700 square feet of habitable space. Some of the concerns of the board and the abutters was the mass or the visual appeal of the garage and it looking like a second dwelling unit on the site. We removed the cupola. We know how we feel about cupolas. We lowered the ridge height by a little over 3 feet to match that of the house. We're now within 4 inches of the existing dwelling. We removed one of the front windows to achieve the ridge. If you go to the next one, we removed the first floor windows to provide more privacy for the neighbor to the south, as well as made adjustments to the second story windows from full height windows to awning windows for that privacy issue as well, or concern. And the last significant modification was we removed the wet bar from the first floor living space and just replaced it with storage for dry goods and outdoor living items and things like that to ease any concerns of it being used as a apartment or another, dwelling unit. The the couple of the other items between now and then, we had made a significant attempt to, solicit feedback and get any concerns taken care of with the abutters through, we were here on the 12th of October. On the 20th of October, we sent these revised plans to the abutters who had concerns, asked if they had any issues, arranged for a time to meet with them. Didn't hear anything, so the assumption is everything we did was amenable and in keeping with what, they had concerns about. And then the last, major thing, just wanted to reiterate, that's the singular tree that is coming down in order to replace the garage structure. A long conversation about vegetation over the entire property. We were here for 2 hours that night, I'm sure you all remember fondly. So, once again, just want to reiterate that the idea of cutting down every tree on the property is not our intent, and it is, the intent of the homeowner to create a private and, green space for their family, so.
Now you can go through the criteria.
All right. Adequacy of the site. The site proves to be adequate for the structure as we're replacing a structure that's currently there. We'll maintain the 8'8" southerly sideline setback, and the structure will conform to all other dimensional height and zoning requirements. The size of the new structure is compatible with those of other ones on the property or in the neighborhood. The property right to the north and property across the street both have outbuildings of similar size, so it is in keeping with neighboring properties and the neighborhood. The garage will not produce any new nonconformities, including setbacks, building coverage, building height. It will be 60 square feet bigger than the existing garage, but we will maintain proper building coverage and whatnot. The site's suitable for the project as there's a structure already there. Impact on the neighboring properties will be minimal. Like I said, we reduced the ridge elevation to that of within 4 inches of the main house to ease a concern of it looking too big or subordinate to the main house. Impact on vegetation, once again, like you said, there's really one tree coming down and some underbrush on the south side of the garage. There's a green screen along the abutting driveway that will be maintained, and we will be filling in more native plants as the project winds down. Runoff, it'll probably be improved as we'll have actual working gutters and dry wells and whatnot for the new building. Visual character of the neighborhood, we believe that replacing the old kind of dilapidated looking garage will help increase the visual appeal of the neighborhood and match the house which is being updated as well. So we think it will only add value to the neighborhood. The use remains the same. It'll be a garage, residential with some habitable space. And the site will be serviced by on-site septic, town water, which are both there and usable. There'll be no impact on traffic or safety, no impact on neighborhood noise or increased litter, and the utilities are all adequate for the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please indicate you'd like to join the conversation.
There is no one to speak in favor.
I'll read the correspondence. First, Christina Bassett, who is writing for the Historical Commission. She writes, on March 21st, 2023, the CHC reaffirmed that 155 Pleasant Street was a contributing structure in the National Register District and did not refer it to the Cape Cod Commission. They also found that the garage to be historically significant, but did not impose a demolition delay. Judith Giorgio writes, our health agent, on 12/5, I've reviewed the plan to add a garage with space that meets the BOH definition of a bedroom to this property. The property was approved for 3 bedrooms when the Title V septic was installed in 1986. A site plan showing the additions in relation to the existing septic system and a plan showing the deletion of a bedroom in the main house will be required. Then we have a letter that was written on December 6th. This is by Catherine Brennan. She writes as follows. I am writing on behalf of the owner of 169 Pleasant Street, which abuts the subject premises at the back end and at the right back corner. 169 Pleasant Street was sold on October 20th after the hearing on 155 Pleasant Street on application 23-082. This letter objects to the granting of a special permit for the above application. The revised plans failed to address the concern raised at the October ZBA meeting, that the property will appear to have 2 dwellings on a small parcel rather than a primary structure and an accessory building. The proposed garage will be a full story above the dwelling on the same lot, which when taller in height would no longer be subordinate to the dwelling as required by the definition of an accessory building. The visual impact of the structures as proposed will be completely out of line for the neighborhood and will impair the character of the neighborhood consisting of a single-family homes. The change of the current garage into what essentially will be a second dwelling unit in appearance, and perhaps even in use as it includes a loft and full bath, will be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure of a 2-car garage. The size of the site is inadequate for the proposed increase in height of the garage due to the proximity to the southerly abutter. I request that the board require the garage to be a true 1.5-story structure, such that the dormers have to be inside of the exterior wall at a 2-story height. I also request that the board require that the ridge height of the proposed garage be lower than the dwelling so that the proposed garage remains subordinate to the principal building on the lot and prevents the appearance of 2 dwelling lots on one lot. At the October ZBA meeting, comparisons were made to the renovation done at 144. This proposal significantly differs from 144. That parcel is larger than 155, and the garage was set back much further from the road, so it appears to be subordinate to the dwelling, which is closer to the road. The structures are not competing with one another for dominance, as would appear from the plans for 155 Pleasant. And as I said, that is from Catherine Brennan. Then we have a note. This is from Jenny Yates, 162 Pleasant Street. I'm writing to express my support for the home construction project at 155. As an abutting neighbor, I want to convey my endorsement of this construction endeavor and believe that the project aligns well with the aesthetics and atmosphere of our neighborhood. I appreciate the effort and consideration they put into ensuring that the project complies with local regulations and maintains the integrity of our neighborhood. Furthermore, I'm excited about the potential improvements and enhancements this construction will bring to our area. And then we have a note. This is from Karen and Joe Cacciatore, 144 Pleasant. As neighbors, we want to convey our endorsement, and this was written on December 1st. As neighbors, we want to convey our endorsement of the home construction project in 155. We have discussed this project and appreciate their thoughtful approach to creating a space that not only benefits their family, but also contributes positively to the entire neighborhood. We are looking forward to witnessing the progress and eventual completion of the project, knowing it will add value and charm to our community. Their efforts are genuinely appreciated. And that is the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that would like to speak either against or has a specific question? If so, please indicate now you'd like to join the correspondent.
Catherine Brennan would like to speak.
Okay, Catherine Brennan, yes.
Thank you. I did speak at the October ZBA meeting as well, but the property had yet to be transferred. I just wanted to say I appreciate very much the changes that have been made to the plans, but I still do not feel that enough has been done. The garage is actually taller than the house, so it is not subordinate to the principal dwelling. I do believe that due to the proximity of the two buildings, they're going to be competing for dominance, and optically, it doesn't look appropriate for the neighborhood of single-family homes. I realize I'm speaking as a newbie to the neighborhood. I've been going to the Cape for 30-plus years. I've had family there, a lot of friends there. So I'm very invested in keeping the neighborhood, the Cape the way it should be, as I grew up with. And it's just gonna look, I think, too congested. Like I said, I think it's definitely moving in the right direction, but I do believe, as I suggested in my letter, that the garage can be lowered. You are increasing a non-conforming structure. In the town where I live, an accessory structure needs to be at least or not more than 75% of the principal dwelling. So I'm surprised that this would be considered. And again, on such a small parcel. I think Mr. Brody did a beautiful job with 144, but 144, that parcel is not the size of the parcel at 155. It's much more congested. And I am very concerned. I did speak to the Bernardis who own 167 yesterday, and they are concerned as well, but they have some, they're busy with their children and would not be able to appear. So they were just hoping that their previous letter would stand on the previous application. I haven't spoken to the Guarinos since before the October meeting. Mr. Brody did send a notice. I unfortunately did not receive it until after November 9th when he offered to meet with us to address their concerns. But obviously everything had already been submitted at that point anyway to the board. I was honestly hoping that we could have a more constructive conversation in regards to the renovation. Not that they have to do that at all. But I just thought it would be more beneficial to everybody involved. But I would just like to see the garage lower than the principal residence so it doesn't look like a competing structure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Larry, would you like some rebuttal to Ms. Brennan's statements?
We've been through it. We spent 2 hours doing it. Jay and I have had the conversation about what is subordinate and what is not. Height really has nothing to do with it. We made the effort to bring the ridge within 4 inches. Structurally and construction-wise, the ridge elevation is where it is to maintain pitch of the driveway to the street. That way, in the event they ever wanted to pave the driveway, the slab of the garage isn't lower than the street, resulting in water issues. If that is of a material concern, we could drop the entire building 4 inches. I think we're getting a little frustrated talking about the same items over and over again, because we did make significant concessions after this hearing for the voices of the abutters, and I think I think we meet the requirements, and I think that we are in keeping with the neighborhood and definitely not more detrimental to the abutting property.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll have questions from the board. Paul?
Let me ask you, as I look at your site plan, I see marked on there a proposed portico. And what does the portico consist of?
It's just the overhang over the front door. I don't know, Sarah, if you can put it
Okay.
back up.
So there's no foundation or anything with that?
No, no, it's just a covered over the entryway, held up by brackets.
Okay. And am I correct in thinking that you've lowered the ridge by 2.5 feet from your previous proposal?
Yes, that is correct.
And maybe you can explain to me, I just heard this comment from the previous speaker about the ridge elevation of the house and the ridge elevation of the garage being the same. But your site plan says that the roof ridge elevation on the house is 70.8, and the ridge level elevation on the garage, now maybe that's the existing garage.
Yeah, on the garage, it says it's 63.8. If you
okay.
look below it, it says proposed.
I see, all right. So you're at 71.6,
Exactly.
slightly higher than the house itself. And the reason for that is what?
Simply to get enough pitch on the dormers so it doesn't look like two flat dormers and maintain a 7'4" ceiling height.
And if you scale it back so that you're not having dormers, then you can put the ridge height at something lower than the existing one for the house.
Yeah, we could put it back to 63.8 if we didn't have a second floor.
Okay. I have no other questions.
Lee?
One other comment, just as far as that ridge height goes, I know it's been brought up multiple times. The facade of the garage is behind the rear elevation of the house. So from a street perspective, it's not two structures side by side. The front of the garage will be, like I said, in line with the back of the house. So it is, 50 feet off of the street, not right on the street with parallel to the house.
Right, thank you.
Lee?
So that point you just made, I think makes a big difference. But this, I think would be so helpful to have a rendering of some sort that showed the two together.
So we had it. I had him do it. It did no justice because you cannot see the depth of it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's really, really challenging to do it, on a flat piece of paper to give you that, view of it.
Okay, thank you. No questions.
Jenny?
Okay, so Paul, you answered some of my questions and the items that Paul was asking. It's 8.5 feet taller than the garage today. Is that what I calculated or you said? I have it written here.
Say that again.
The proposed garage is 8.5 feet taller than the one that's there today?
The ridge elevation, yes.
Okay. And you said that it is 4 inches lower than the house?
It will be 4 inches taller than the ridge on the house.
Oh, 4 inches taller? Okay.
Yes.
And it's 50 feet from the road, and it's also declining. The elevation is down, right? So
Yes.
that, I agree with Lee. I think that does make a big difference. And you can see it in the site plan that it is quite a bit back, and it's right next to the house, but it is going up a story, but it is pitched down and 50 feet back.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't have any more questions.
Dave?
I don't know that I have questions. I just want to point to that by my calculations, the proposed ridge elevation is 7.8 feet higher than the existing garage ridge. It goes from 71.6 elevation down to, or it went from 63.8 to 71.6. That's 7.8 feet. And I have no other questions, Dave.
Randy?
So I understand that you addressed some of the concerns of the abutters, but we also, I know at least I also said that it looks a lot like two houses next to each other. And with those dormers, that really does make it look like a house, and especially with the type of door you're gonna have with that, you know, I forget what you call that.
Just a portico.
Portico. It really looks like a house. And now it looks like a house that's taller than the initial house. And I think that exacerbates it, the fact that it looks so much like a house in the first place, and then it's taller as well. So, that's, in my mind, not a lot's changed in that respect.
So if I go back to the previous meeting, we had that discussion, and you made the comment just of, you know, usually we try to get garages to not look like garages. As far as, you know, the appearance of a house, we did the shed roof over the garage, bumped out a bit to reduce the, you know, mass of the gable wall. If you see it from the side, the front of the garage is actually, you know, the second story is actually pushed back even further than where the garage door is, to give it some dimension, shadow lines, and, you know, reduce that scale.
Don't get me wrong, it's attractive. It's an attractive house, kind of, but.
Okay.
Actually, I guess, let me ask one other question. Is the owner's objective here to get more living space or to get a garage?
Both. Right now, the garage they have is not usable. It is too small, it's too low. He actually tore the top off of his Jeep pulling it in this summer. And to create more living space for a home office and overflow. Their intent is to live here full-time with their family, grown kids and whatnot. So it is, you know, twofold: to renovate the house. There's Tony himself, the homeowner, as well as, you know, gain storage and an actual usable garage space.
Okay.
Deliberation.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Each seconds.
Need a vote on that, Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul?
All votes yes?
Randy votes yes?
Beach votes yes.
I vote yes. Okay. Deliberations. Lee?
Well, I appreciate all the changes that you've made. I think it looks much better than the original plan. The building height is better. The fact that it's still higher than the existing house is a little of a concern, but once again, I think, as you mentioned, it's set back. I like it. I would approve it if I were voting today.
Ginny?
So, 2.5 feet shorter, it's 50 feet from the road, it's pitched down, it's an attractive design. You took considerations from what we said last time in October. Is it enough? I'd like to hear what the rest of my board members say, but I am liking the majority of what I have seen.
Dave?
Yeah, I think they've definitely responded in a significant way to the concerns that were raised. You know, to drop that ridge by 2.5 feet, that's a significant change from what was originally proposed. I think there's, you know, I remember now in some of the discussion in October, and we were talking about, you know, it looks like two houses on a lot and things, and I just don't, I don't subscribe to that. I think, you know, first of all, we have definitions about accessory structures and separate dwellings, all these things in the bylaw, and this doesn't meet any of those definitions, not being proposed as any of that. They are seeking to put habitable space above the new garage. And I think that's I honestly think that's a reasonable request. I don't think, I personally don't think that the focus on the ridge height is higher than the main dwelling. I don't think that, I think that's too narrow a focus in assessing the visual characteristics of whether it's competing somehow visually with the main house. I just don't think, I think it's being obscured here, honestly. I think that you're gonna drive down Pleasant Street, take a drive down Pleasant Street, and look at that situation and imagine the proposal they have there. I don't think people are gonna be going, oh, wow, this lot's overdeveloped. There's two houses here. This is really pushing this one. I'm sorry, that's not the appearance it's gonna be in my judgment with respect to this proposal. And I think that there's no way that I could attach the word substantially more detrimental to this proposal. And that's the judgment that we need to make, I believe, in voting against something like this. This is certainly not, in my judgment, substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. There have been questions raised and well raised by some of the neighbors. But that is, I don't agree with many of those objections, and I don't agree with their assessments of the situation in this case. So I'm going to be voting for it. Thanks.
Randy?
Well, I agree with what Ginny said about the factors in terms of it's set back, it's very attractive. It is a very small lot, and the initial, and the principal house is pretty small. So I do think, though, that it's a little overcrowded in terms of the property. And I'm not positive how I would vote yet. I think it's definitely detrimental because it's really an important street, you know, historic-wise. I think the whole street is in the historic district. It's a really important street. It doesn't get enough credit. Neither do the beaches down that way. And maybe that's a good thing because then people don't go to them as much. But it is quite lovely down there. I mean, even the bungalow houses, it's a cool street. I run down there quite a bit. You look at all the houses, and I looked at it this morning, and I think it's gonna look a little overcrowded with a big garage like that, but it is attractive. So, I'm not positive.
Paul?
Well, I share some of the concerns that Randy has, but I also agree with Dave's analysis. When you go down the street, as you say, there are a number of places where you have houses behind houses, and it's a congested neighborhood in that sense. But I think that if you are looking at it overall, given the fact that the garage is set back substantially from the road and behind the house, I don't think you're going to look at that as being a second house. So I'm inclined to say that I don't think it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Jenny? Did you want another bite at the apple? No. Okay. You know, the heights of structures on property and all that, well, I think about, I don't care where I go in New England. If I see a house that happens to have a barn, the barn's ridge is like, it's like twice the height of the house, you know? To me, there's nothing oddball about having the ridge of a garage or a barn, or whatever it might be, higher than the house. So I really am not troubled by that at all. No, and I appreciate the fact, Larry, you took the wet bar out, and I'd probably want a condition that it stay out, but something like that. But overall, you've tried to make this more palatable to the neighbors and certainly to us on the board.
I'll move to approve the application as submitted. I think we would need conditions that construction activity and vehicles would be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. I see that he's on site doing construction work right now on the building itself, so I'm not sure that there is more conditions that we need, given the time frame involved.
Dave Veach seconds.
We need a vote. Ginny?
Did you want Dave's condition about the wet bar?
Oh, yeah, please do. Sorry.
Yes, that the wet bar, which was represented on the plans, will not be reinstalled.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay.
Second, yep.
Second, okay. Ginny, vote.
Ginny votes yes.
Paul votes yes.
Randy votes yes.
Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Five-minute break.
to me earlier and.
Okay, we are back, everybody. And so, Sarah, our last application of the day is 23-112, please.
Application number 23-112, Vincent F. Lacerbo, care of Thad Eldridge, 1038 Main Street, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 70 Barn Hill Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 9D, Block 35, Lot 6. The applicant seeks dimensional variances to allow for the constructed dwelling to be located 14.6 feet from the northerly setback, where a 15-foot setback is required, and to allow the building height to remain 30.1 feet, where 30 feet is the maximum allowed. The property contains 53,632 square feet within the R20 zoning district. A dimensional variance is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10, and Section 8D2C of the protective bylaw.
Thad.
Good afternoon. For the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. I'm here with the property owner, Vince Lacerbo. As you understand from the legal notice, we're here to seek a variance for the 5-inch overhang of the chimney. We were able to bring the building into conformity with the building height, and it's at 30.0 feet. So we will not be requesting that variance. The structure in question is a chimney. It contains no living space, and it is opposite the neighbor's detached garage that's about a foot off the lot line. For the application of the variance, we've called upon the shape of the lot. Originally, this lot line was straight, and it had been shifted to keep the neighbor's garage on the neighbor's property. It's enough to get us here for a variance request. We're not substantially derogating from the meaning and intent of the bylaw, and in fact, given the proximity of the garage to the lot line, the neighbor cannot stand on their property without being very thin against their garage and be within the 15 feet of that chimney. To review the timeline of the project, in February 2016, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted a special permit for this project. That was with a previous property owner. In June of 2016, the Lacerbos purchased this property. They simply moved across the street as their previous property became part of the Jesse's Landing subdivision. In July of 2020, the Lacerbos refiled. They were the same plans that were refiled, and the Zoning Board of Appeals granted a special permit for the demolition of a very dilapidated structure, and it was the construction of the guest house in this location. The Lacerbos did engage a general contractor. The general contractor unfortunately quit before starting. We were getting into COVID lockdowns and difficulties with scheduling. They made attempts to find a new general contractor. They were unsuccessful, and they filed for a building permit as their own contractor. In September of 2020, we were engaged to prepare a sewer connection plan, provide construction layout, and as-built documents. In July of 2021, we received the plans that were submitted for the building permit. We prepared the staking sheet. We staked everything in July of 2021. We did not notice that the chimney had changed. The original chimney, or the original fireplace, was inset into the structure, and that's included in the package that I handed to you, or was waiting for you in return from break. The original fireplace was inset into the building where there would be no chimney outside. The final design plans included a fireplace with a chimney that extended out as was constructed. In October of 2021, thank you, Sarah. So you can see that the original design had a straight wall here, and the fireplace was in, and then the building permit plans included the chimney out. So in October of 2021, we located the foundation. We produced a certified as-built plan, And in February of 2023, we were contacted to perform the as-built of the project. We found 4 violations. The building height exceeded the 30-foot. An air conditioning unit was installed in violation of the side yard setback. The front steps were in violation of the front setback, and the chimney was in violation of the side setback. We did what we could to remedy everything. Changes were made to the property. The little retaining wall was put in the back to bring the grade up. The building is now conforming to the 30-foot height requirement. The air conditioning unit was relocated to the rear of the property. It now meets the setbacks. The front steps were altered so that they are now a separate step. They qualify under the steps and stoops requirement under the bylaw. All that is left is the chimney. So we've looked at modifying this fireplace. The interior was not designed for that fireplace to be inset. The stairs were located right here, right next to the chimney. Actually, if you could go to the next page. Thank you. So the stairs were laid right down right next to this fireplace. So bringing the chimney, or bringing the fireplace in, bringing the chimney into conformance is going to cause a problem with the stairs that would be yet another issue to deal with. So we've reviewed the possibility of a variance. We meet enough criteria to get before you and review it, and we understand that a variance is a large issue, even though this is a small matter of 5 inches over 5 feet. How we got here, as this was under construction, the excavating contractor had noted that this lot really lends itself to a walkout. That change was made without realizing that it would violate the building height. The framer noted that the steps would have been about an 8-foot tall set of steps to lead down where they were designed originally. They work better out the front. That was not in compliance. That's now brought in. And the HVAC contractor was unaware of the 15-foot setback, and now that's been remedied. The architect thought it'd be better to have an external chimney, and this was unfortunate that it was not reviewed. There was no ill intent for any of these changes. Just is what happened. As for myself, I should have noticed the chimney. I went through the plans. I didn't go through them well enough to see that the chimney had changed. I know that Mr. Acton's name is often brought up. Joe Craig's voice is echoing in my mind now. And one of his 2 favorite phrases was, "It's all on you." And this is one where I failed. I should have noticed this. I should have brought it to the attention of the property owner. I should have brought it to attention of the town staff. And so now it's all on me to bring it back before you with a variance request for 5 inches over 5 feet. The project was very cumbersome for the property owner. He did his best to manage the project, and it went over budget, and everything was a little difficult for him from that end. If you could scroll up 2 pages, Sarah. I've put a red line in. The piece of trim is the violation. Since this picture was taken, he's planted arborvitaes in front of this. It won't be visible from the street in a few years. And I hope that you can find it appropriate to grant a variance in this case. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams who would like to speak in favor of this application?
There is no one to speak in favor.
I'll read the correspondence. First, this is from Amy and Stephen Walker. They write on November 29th, "We send this email in approval and support for a dimensional variance for the dwelling at 70 Barn Hill Road. We own 80 Barn Hill Road next door. Thank you for considering our opinion." Then we have an email from Anthony Incognoli, and I guess he's at 40 Barn Hill Road. I am the next door neighbor to the home that they built, replacing the old structure. It's a major improvement to the neighborhood. The chimney is an unfortunate oversight and should be approved. And then we have a note from Robert and Ellen Lincoln, 58 Barn Hill Road. Dear members of the ZBA, we're direct abutters. We are neighbors. They have undertaken a building project to remediate a dilapidated cottage on the site where the owners of a home at 58 Barn Hill since 1998. The newly constructed cottage has improved the site and our neighborhood. And talking to them recently, our neighbors informed us of an issue whereby the newly built structure fails to conform to boundary limits by virtue of a 4+ inch overage/discrepancy, where a gas vent extends from a sidewall bump out. It appears to have been a contractor oversight. We wanted to write this letter to support the appeal for a variance, as the issue poses no significant impact to the boundary, the building, the site, or the neighborhood. As abutters who share the boundary that is encroached upon, we feel no effect and have no problem or issue with the structure newly built as is. Please include this letter of support in your upcoming ZBA hearing. Thank you, and we appreciate the opportunity to lend our support. That is the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here or in the audience that would like to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please indicate you wish to join the conversation now.
There's no one in opposition or the question.
Okay, questions from the board? Lee?
I have no questions.
Ginny?
All right, I have a few. The timeline is helpful, Thad. I was a little confused. My first question was the fireplace in the original site plan, which was in 2016, and you've answered that. It was no. The answer was no.
The fireplace was there, but it was inset without the chimney extending from the building.
Okay, so, all right, so the ZBA 2020 submission, okay, is right there. I see it inset. And then the one below it is 2021. So is it typical to have a change like that made between what's approved by ZBA and then what the building permit is?
There are times when there are minor changes that are made.
Is that a minor change?
We would usually bring this to the attention of the property owner and the town to say, is this an insignificant change?
Okay.
We would also shift the building over in order to make sure it's conforming.
Okay. So you made a comment about the stairs not being now suitable to move the fireplace. I'm looking at the rendering of the 2021 building permit. So I can see where the stairs are now a problem if the fireplace goes back in. But the stairs changed too, from what was above in 2016.
They did.
What?
They did.
Isn't that a substantial change? I mean, if the stairs had stayed the same, you could have moved the original fireplace on 2016 is showing as inset, and the stairs are there, it looks like it was fine. Now, the chimney moved out, the stairs moved. The combination of those two, is that a significant change?
Possibly. We don't typically look at interiors other than bedroom counts. And
I wasn't really directing it at you
Oh, sure,
personally, but
sure.
I just mean, one of my questions is, and I read in the previous packet that we had, that there was a lot, and I know the timing of this, 2020, that there was a lot of change, contractor quit, wasn't satisfactory, there's an architect involved, you're involved, the homeowner's involved. Was there anyone overseeing the project?
Oh, sure. Vince
Vince Lacerbo, the owner of the property.
Excuse me, sir, would you please take off your hat? Thank you very much. You're on TV and,
Understandable.
okay.
Just came from work, 2 hours away. I originally bought the property with the plans for the new house, and they got it approved in 16. And I've never done this before. This is all new to me. I was under the impression that the plans that were already approved is part of the value of the property so I could build another property. Then I went to go do it, and I realized there was a 2-year, window that you had to do something in. So I brought it back to the zoning board to get it reapproved. Then when I went to the building department, they said, well, these plans aren't, they're not enough for what you're gonna do. We need, a lot more to it. I don't know if the other guy, I think he was more of I don't think he was an architect, the guy that originally drew up the first plans for the previous owners. So I brought it to an architect and I said, this was already approved by the ZBA. I need it to be the exact same footprint. I just need everything redone so the building department knows what we're using there was no framing, framing instructions or anything on the old plans. So I brought it to a new architect to redo everything, paid him $5,500 to basically redo what was there, and the few changes he made, I didn't even notice. I just took it and went to the next person who was the site work guy who I found, fortunately down in the Cape, and he introduced me to the next guy. So I've never done this before. I had a general contractor before COVID happened. He backed out because everybody got busy, and he was from up where I was. So I ended up using a bunch of people from down here other than the electrician and the HVAC guy. Everybody else was local, including Mid-Cape Lumber. So like I said, this was, it's not that, it's, I've never done this before. So went from, being my wife and I's dream to build another house for the kids when they get older to come visit, to being a 3-year nightmare of, overage, quite a extensive overage. And it just, so it's fell on me, but I don't have experience. Like I said, there's no malice, there was no ill intent. I screwed up.
I understand. I'm a homeowner myself that has done renovation that wasn't smooth, so I get it, but.
If I could clarify a few things, when we submit plans, when the architect submits plan to the zoning board of
Yeah.
appeals, they're rough. There's a floor plan, there's elevations. Once the zoning board approves a project, then the architect goes back and creates construction drawings. And some of the deviations that we see between the two plans will be, the structural engineer says, hey, this dimension should be a little different. The foundation can change by a little bit. Usually these are minor, an inch or two. Sometimes those are considered before, but if somebody's going to the zoning board and not sure if they're going to be approved, why would they go to the expense of the construction documents beforehand? So these plans were reviewed by the building department and accepted. So if the interior had been a substantial deviation from the approved permit, then the building department had an opportunity to review that.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone missed it, right? I mean, it is on the architect plans that we have here. They don't have dimensions going out, they have dimensions going, width, but they don't show how far it was going out. I don't have any other questions right now.
Dave?
Yeah, I could have a lot of comments, but I don't have any questions at this point, thanks.
Randy?
So just to clarify, the neighbor that's affected, so to speak, by this, he was the one that wrote the letter?
All three. There's,
Yeah.
the one to the right is the direct abutter to where the chimney is. He's
Yeah.
okay with it.
Yeah.
The one to the left of me, they're okay with it. And then there's a house behind, behind Chatham Pottery that Anthony and Cognoli owns. So that kind of abuts the rear house that's on our property.
Yeah. And I
So all
often-
three were okay with it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I often don't put that much stock in neighbors, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and it was, it definitely improved. It took us a while, and we were fortunate enough to get the loan to do it right before COVID, and then everything fell apart. And then it was a scramble, so that's why I had to get it going, because if I didn't get anything going, they would have rescinded, taken the loan back. So I had to make modifications to it as we went, because it was significantly over budget. Plus, I didn't know what I was doing, so I had to
Oh, it sounds like you have some
rely on everybody else.
financial
And I think it's a
hardship.
gorgeous
Yeah.
house. They did
Yeah.
a beautiful job. I was fortunate enough to find some great contractors, and like I said, there was just a couple of things that I missed.
Yep, no, I get that. And so we're just talking about the trim, really. Like, I
Yeah.
really appreciate this picture with the red line on the trim. So obviously you can't take that off, could you?
No, and I've
No.
asked the contractors and stuff, and unfortunately, it was a $7,000 addition for aesthetics and some
Sure.
for the downstairs if they didn't want to put up the couple zones, but
in hindsight, I would have just never put the chimney on. And it was on the previous plans from the previous guy that did it, so I just went along with it.
And did you get, is that all set? What is it, not a gas stove?
Gas, natural gas.
It's a
Yeah,
natural
yeah,
gas?
natural gas.
Does that actually heat the room?
It does, it has a blower, it heats, so if you didn't want to turn on both
Yeah,
zones
yeah.
upstairs and down, you could just put that on if you're in the living room and just have that as the primary source of heat
And
where
is
you
that
are.
all permitted at this point, or would it be?
It's so the guy inserted the fireplace, and then the plumber didn't want him going off his permit, so now Phil, the plumber, has to go and finish the connection between the gas fireplace and the actual hard pipe.
And you have no reason to believe that's not going to work out?
No, he said
Yeah.
it's just a matter of him getting to it at this point.
And
And that's the
how
only
much
thing
would it
that's left.
cost, if you know, to axe off?
Anywhere
that?
from $4,000 to $5,000.
So that's what we're talking about?
And I don't have the shingles, I don't have, so it'd have to be all piecemealed on a brand-new house, it just wouldn't, I don't know.
No, I understand. Okay, thanks.
Paul?
I have no questions. I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote on that, Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
All vote yes?
Votes yes?
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. Okay, deliberations. Dave?
Well, I think they've demonstrated, I mean, I would, that lot line is pretty unique for the neighborhood and the lot, and you can see why it was done the way it was done, is Thad explained. So it qualifies under that criteria, in my judgment. It meets the hardship criteria, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see this as a self-created hardship, really. I mean, there are explanations about this and how this could happen, and that it did happen. And I would submit that this is not particularly unusual in the construction process. I mean, I've said this a number of times, and, this is paper and ink, and, and plans, and even the best of plans, and even the best of the professionals, mistakes get made. And frequently, you don't find out about those mistakes until you're converting paper and ink into brick and mortar, and studs and drywall and everything else. And so what we might tend to think of as being solid, locked in, no deviation is not really the way it works in general. And then there's always questions and about, well, then we go ask, and does it need, and and Jay's interpretation, some of it might be different than his predecessor or his predecessors, about what's the, or the interpretations might change. And by and large, and we've seen any number of things come back to us that are frequently the results of mistakes. Unfortunately, sometimes then it leads to the request for a variance, and that makes it tougher. It's a lot easier for us as well when it's a special permit or changing a special permit. But sometimes, like this one, the request is for a variance. In this case, I feel pretty solidly that it meets the three prongs of what we need to find in order to grant a variance. This doesn't derogate from the intent, purpose of the bylaw. There's certainly a hardship involved here. I can think of a variance that we granted, I don't remember now, a few years ago, that was the result of an error. If the error was a misinterpretation of the plans that the architect had drawn by the builder. And the building was constructed, it was all done, and ended up with the ridge being too high. And I felt in that instance, it was the applicants were the owners of the property, and ultimately the responsible party, as in this case, Mr. LaSurbe. But given the explanation of how it had happened, and there was no intent for it was just a mistake that I determined could very easily have been made. And I feel like all the mistakes were made here were very easy to. It was very easy for these mistakes to have been made, and thus it's brought us before us. I think they've demonstrated a willingness to do what they could do to fix the others, and that's much to their benefit. I mean, especially, when I out there and looked at it and looked at when they suggested the stairs originally being drawn going off the deck down into to move the steps up to, it's a, this makes sense, and all these things. So I really appreciate all that, and I don't know, I probably said too much, but I think, I really think that this is deserving of a variance, and I will support it. Thanks.
Randy?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I find myself agreeing with, I know, miracles happen. More or less, with my colleague, Mr. Veach, in many ways, but I can even do one better. I've been reading a lot about variances lately, not just because of this case, but I like to read cases, and this seemed like as good of a topic as any to sort of really beef up on. And so I find one case that I looked at somewhat helpful to your situation. It didn't say that there was a such thing as de minimis. However, what happened was there needed to be 100 feet, and there was 98. And I think it might have been a lot size, and it wasn't argued that was de minimis. And so therefore, the court did not get a memorandum about that, and they didn't consider it. But I think there was some dicta that it could have maybe been de minimis if somebody had argued it. So, but no one did. And so that was 2 feet, and this is 4.5 inches. And so the way I look at it is I could see that this being de minimis, and that's it. And I don't think we're going to get appealed, so I think it could be something that would be upheld, at least in this town. Also, for there to be an intent for this kind of situation, the cases show that it's property owners that divide property up such that they make lots a little bit too small to get more, greedy. And that is deemed as self-inflicted. And that's the only time I see that in self-inflicted hardships. And it's always about that. And it's always referred to about that. It's not referred to, I never see anything in any of the cases about builders, messing up, so to speak. And so I don't know why, I don't see that. I don't know if Sarah sees it. I know Sarah has a lot of cases too in her file, and I looked at those, and I really don't see this. So I wonder if it's ever really considered self-inflicted when somebody makes an actual mistake. So I'm going to support it.
Well,
sounds like we have a lawyer involved here when we started dicta and de minimis and bottom line. I'm going to support it. I think what I would say is I think when you look at the situation and you look at the lot line in this particular location, clearly you can say that the issue is the lot line, and it's not something which is generally consistent with the neighborhood. I think there's clearly hardship involved when you're dealing with 5 inches and a chimney, and you have no objection from any neighbors. And I think it's consistent with a substantial concept of what we're trying to do with our zoning. So I would vote in favor of it.
Lee?
Well, I agree with all my colleagues. I am especially impressed with your efforts to remedy the things you could fix.
And it was expensive,
Well, it always is.
but you did it.
And having just completed a construction project myself, things happen. Even with the, experienced builders and homeowners that are right on top of everything, things still happen. So I appreciate your efforts in that respect. And I agree. I think it meets all of the criteria for a variance. And I'm not voting, but I would approve it.
Jenny?
Okay, well, we've got construction experts and lawyers that I am way over my head with this one, but, so the reason I was asking those questions about who did what and when it changed is because, and I'm sure you know, that to get a variance is very difficult. You have to meet these criteria, all three of them. And the one that I was struggling with when I came in here today was the hardship. And the self-imposed aspect of that. So that's why I was asking, like, did you make the change? Did you oversee this? You didn't have a general contractor? It does sound like it was a lot of confusion. You have a lot of different people involved. It doesn't at all sound like there was any intent. But nonetheless, it's still very hard to, that seems to be a really hard hurdle to anyway, listening to the rest of my colleagues and your explanation, and Thad, your narrative and the timeline, I do think it's important that the neighbor, in particular, the 158, which is the one whose the shed is there. And I thought I read a correspondence, maybe it was in some of the prior stuff where it wasn't that favorable. So I was worried about that, but that was helpful. I agree with Lee, the fact that you fixed all of these things were great, but I'm concerned that there were so many problems. Like, there doesn't seem to be, and that's where I keep going back to the self-inflicted hardship. Like, as the homeowner with no GC, you should have, had more control over the changes and who was doing what. I think you know that. It is de minimis in the sense, well, there isn't really de minimis, but I put a lot of credence on what Dave Veach and Randy and Paul in particular because of their experience with the law and construction. So I am leaning towards supporting it.
Well, there's always one, and that's usually me. Yeah, this is nothing I could support, and I'll tell you why. I don't buy the idea that this wasn't self-generated. This was self-generated. And so, to me, the hardship isn't there. And I think, as Jenny just pointed out, there were 4 things that were wrong. Height, this. And so there's a pattern here. There's a pattern. It isn't just one thing. There was a pattern in the way you constructed it. And so I can't buy the argument that the hardship wasn't self-generated, and therefore you don't qualify for a variance. As far as this de minimis argument, and Jay and I have talked about de minimis and all that, I just don't believe in de minimis. It's either right or wrong. I don't care if it's 4 inches, 4 feet. So I will be voting no. Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds.
All right, we need a vote. I'll start the other end. Dave?
Yeah, as I indicated, I will support this.
Randy?
Yes.
I'm voting no. Paul?
I'll vote yes.
Jenny?
I vote yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The
Like I said, if I
supermajority,
could have not
4 to
gone through
1.
this- Thank you.
There you go.
If I could
All
have
right.
not went through this whole process, I would have, but I make pizza, I don't know anything to do about building houses. I should have brought it, it would have been cold by the time I got
Oh, so you wanted to accept a bribe?
Thank you.
Okay. We have one more thing to do before we hit the road. And
It is the appointment of the nomination committee for the election of officers.
so that's the chairman's job to do that. And I went on a worldwide search to find someone that would qualify, and unfortunately, had to be a regular member. And so I looked in the mirror, and I said, "You're it, buddy." So I'm the nomination committee, and Dave has offered to help me, which was very kind of him. So we will have our report for everyone in 2 weeks at the 21st.
Dynamite.
All right. It isn't an election, it's an appointment. So that's that. So, Paul,
I'll move to adjourn.
And Davey seconds.
everybody please vote. Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Lee?
Lee votes yes.
All vote yes.
I vote yes.
Yes?
Vitro chess.
And the official time is?
5:38 PM.
All right. We made it. Ed, you haven't met Lee.